that has a possibility of having some random key into the EEPROM for the encryption of the EEPROM. The ROM is encrypted with a random key per mask, and the static RAM is encrypted with a random key that's chosen the first time it's serialized. Long story short, Siemens writes a card OS operating system that doesn't even take advantage of this nice 64-bit X key, which even if it is in a way snake oil, if it's there, use it. And they didn't use it. So buyer beware. You should be careful because the pin is in the clear on those eToken Pros. So do me a favor and fill out the comment card like I was saying. So who wants to see some porn? Yeah, come on, get here. Okay. So. Okay, now you got to bear with me because I mean we'll get much better images this way. So I'll start with Atmel. I have a whole drive of images here. I mean I have everybody. I don't even know who to start with. This is 100 gigs, but we'll start with what I planned for the talk. So we'll do Atmel first. These are in no specific order really. So the Atmel Security VR, it looks like this. Now this is a mesh that gives the appearance that it might be what I call three-dimensional. And so the reason I call it three-dimensional is because the mesh begins on, for example, hypothetically metal 4, and then it goes under to metal 3, and then comes back up somewhere else on metal 4 again, doing kind of a lane shift. But then it's static down the center. So Atmel missed something very important on this design. Well, one thing that I should mention is it's not a 3D mesh because the mesh actually doesn't go up and down. It changes the size and the thickness of the track, and that's why you get this effect over here in the corner where it looks like something's changed. But if I zoom in on the next image, which is just the very top row, at a little higher power, you'll see that really this is just these there's actually an error here, but these are these wires that just came over and then came down and got thicker, and they give the appearance of being some type of an arrow. So it gives a really cool look, but it's more of an obscurity technique than anything else. Because as soon as you strip this with some hydrofluoric acid, you strip off the top metal, you can leave the trowel in the glass and the oxide where the metal lived, and so you can follow over where the track went anyway with it missing. And Atmel and most of these mesh companies miss the fact that I'm not going to remove the entire mesh. I'm going to remove a piece of the mesh, as I described in the TPM attack. So I'm going to find where the instruction latches are, and then I'm going to, figure out, okay, it's 100 microns over, and it's 140 microns up in the chip. You go to this location, and then you dig right there. You dig out some type of a known reference, as I described in February, and then that's the only area that you're going to bridge. Atmel Secure AVR. Anybody used an Atmel Secure AVR in the past? This is an older Secure AVR. This is a 350 nanometer. I think it's three metals. It's a nice chip. It's only flash with EEPROM, and then it has a bootloader that they load into their flash that you can overwrite later. It's got a crypto coprocessor, and when I first looked at it, I thought that this was actually some type of boot ROM, and so I analyzed it, but it wasn't. They were not AVR opcodes. It's some type of custom CPU that they've designed for crypto, for their PKI, and so it's just kind of neat. Again, it's an image from the fib. So the 6464 looks like this. Now this is wrong. These were comments I made in the very beginning, and this is not a bootstrap ROM, or a bootloader. What this actually is the crypto ROM, and this is what it looks like, before it's stripped down. And then the other picture you saw was when it's been delayered to the very bottom of the chip, basically. The instruction registers, Atmel they've missed the boat here. So Atmel thinks, that we've covered the EEPROM and the flash because they're under this. So if you want to, they're going to probe this, and they're going to tell you we've encrypted it and we've buried it under metal. So get through it. Well, guess what? I can get right through it. In fact, while I'm on this topic here, I'll open another folder. Give me 1 second. I think these are the holes. I was playing around with UV one night a long time ago in 2003. And here's an example. So much for that ground plane. That it might even be VCC. I have no idea, but it's probably grounded. And so here you can see this chip still ran when I was finished. So here I used a laser, and I used it with green. Anybody here ever work with laser cutters? This is where they come in useful, even if it's like smaller than 350. You get solid planes of metal like this; they're perfect. And so here I used UV, but it wasn't good enough. So then I used green, but it was too low of a power. So here I used green, and then I used UV to finish the job. And then I actually hit these two power planes, VDD or VPP. I guess it's VPP, and probably ground or something inside the chip, and I put a needle on it. And this was just a proof of practice, So these techniques are very important. You learn, like I might show you something that's on a 1990 chip, but if you think about it, it's probably usable still today. So this chip, you look at it and you're like, well, where are the instruction registers? So does anybody have any idea how to find them? Anybody? Come on, somebody. Castanol.
Find 8 flip-flops with a common clock.
Jawohl. But this is an AVR. It has 16 flip-flops with a common clock. So basically we start to strip the chip down. We strip it layer by layer. Top metal, strip it off. Actually, one of them you're going to leave it alone. Maybe you'll polish it down a little bit, to get rid of some of the passivation. Sometimes the die will look clearer in your images if you mill it for a little bit on a lapping machine. Just lap it down a little bit. Remove a few microns of the passivation, that very top oxide. So you strip this down layer by layer, and then you do photomosaics of the areas where you think they might be, and you're looking for some flip-flops that are going to have a common clock. Now these flip-flops are not going to be in the middle of this. They could be, but they're probably not going to be, because what you've got an instruction register here that has to decode and trickle out to decode every instruction the AVR has. And there's like 133 instructions or 132 instructions in an AVR. So the instruction registers or the instruction latches, depending how they've designed it, are going to be somewhere near the edge typically. And this is not for sure 100%, but I will almost guarantee you'll find them quickly if you look near the edge. But Atmel brags in their TOEs, the common criteria evaluations, that this is all encrypted. So even if you sat on the EEPROM or the RAM or any of these RAMs, you're not going to understand anything because everything's encrypted. But what they don't tell you is encryption to them is a few bit swaps, some inverses, and an XOR, things like this. It's really silly today. I mean, no one truly is doing real, true, hardcore, DES decryption. And really, if you think about it, how can they? Because you're dealing with, let's say 4-byte fetch. That's the max pretty much you're going to deal with on an 8-bit CPU. 4 bytes are fetched maximum for some instruction. Typical instructions 1 bit. And also you have the trade-off of time. How you can trickle through logic and it adds a propagation delay to the circuit, and that becomes your maximum clock frequency you can run at. But to really do like 16 rounds of DES, it's not happening on any of these small processors. So here, if you look on the side, Atmel talks about 72 lines coming out of the chip for debug testing. Well, these 72 lines are right here, down on poly. So Atmel says, you can't get to them anymore. We've sawed them off the wafer after production. Well, they've sawed them off. They're right here. Then you can get to them with a fib. But if you follow these, they come to what is basically a mux. And so at one of these lines that had a pull-up on it actually determined if you were going to run code from the outside world or run code from the onboard flashes. And this is how Atmel serializes their flash for the first time to install this bootloader. Because how else are they going to get it in unless they're probing the die? But there's metal. The top metal is covering the entire surface. So they come up with this really cool idea, but it was a really bad idea. Because guess what's near these lines? The instruction register. So right in this area is the Atmel 3232, 6464, 7272, C, whichever version of it, whichever flavor. Find this area, and right in this area from the edge will be your magic 16 flip-flops. The irony here too is, look how close to the edge you are on this chip. Every chip, you're always near the edge somewhere. And everything on this side of it everything down here has to do with EEPROM and flash encryption. Everything here on the side has to do with decryption of the fetch. The opcode's decrypted, and then it's latched. Does anybody have questions? Can I say that, please? Show you one where I've what? I've never failed. That's things. So, say again?
What about Deathfire and the new NXP pretend to be high secure ships like the Deathfire 8?
I've never seen it. I don't know. But I have Deathfire chips from back in the old Crypto 1 era when Dr. Knoll was working on it. And so I have frozen Deathfires that are on like 250 nanometer process. But with a SEM or a fib, it doesn't matter how small they go, you're still only as secure as Metal 1. So, I shouldn't say Metal 1 even, I should say the width of the track. So the chips, they can go to 10 nanometers. I don't care, I can still see it, and I can still touch their metal. Their metal tracks will never be 10 nanometers wide. That's the actual gate. And so the metal tracks typically are 300 nanometers, 400 nanometers, 500 nanometers, and up. Any smaller, I haven't seen. What do you know your track width on like a 45 nanometer process? No, it's going to be small, but I have a feeling it's going to be at least 100 nanometers. I've just never seen one to really compare. So here you can see now these bits were figured out because I know I've been into computers since I was like 9 years old. So I've had a computer since like 78, and basically I've written in like every language you can think of, except the ARM, ironically enough. It's so popular. I know it only as much as I need to. But so I love the AVR. I love it a lot. And so you have to know the languages of these chips. That's something I didn't say before. So knowing the language of these chips, you learn to recognize the order the bits should go. Now, this was completely randomly placed. And, so bit 6 ended up here, bit 7, bit 1, bit 5, bit 10, bit 0, bit 8, bit 11, and it's just you have to deduce it. You have to, study it and look at it and take it out, take a run. And honestly, on a 16-bit processor, it's a pain in the butt. It really is. And there's other challenges too that I'm not even going to get into, like internal clock, when they come out of reset staying in sync, things like this. But what I want to show you about this picture, that's important to me is I've written all over it, but you didn't see it yet. That's why I opened it in Photoshop. So we got an ugly poly layer here. So use nice tools like Karsten Knoll's D-Gate, things like this, and you can study the flip-flops pretty easily, or you can find them on your own. I try to use D-Gate, and I don't have success really, but we're going to work on that. So you can see here you've got a bunch of flip-flops, but these flip-flops are different. They're very unique in the architecture. Now, finding these took a while. It probably, I would say, took like a month. But this is the first time that I went after something like this. So it's tricky. So that's poly. You get your metal 1. Now you have your metal 2. And then if you want, you have ugly metal 3, but I'm not going to turn it on. So now you start to add things. Now let's add D0 trace. There's the D0 trace. So D0 on, off. You can see it. Now if we do turn on metal 3, and now you follow D0, look at that, it's coming out on top metal. What if I told you that every one of the data bus bits comes to top metal? You can hit this chip with a laser. You do not need a fib to attack any of those older Atmel's smart cards. When I told Atmel, they laughed. They said, "Oh, that's old." I said, "It doesn't matter. You're as strong as your weakest link." This gives me an indoor to the AVR architecture that today's platform is built upon. So they don't just make something